Well, what's up, begin there, guys? Brian here at 3TR, and welcome to another episode of the People's Questions, where I answer all the questions that you guys sent me over the past week. I think we got a pretty standard episode, nothing too special. I'm not sure if we even have any newbies this time around. Probably not. I think everyone here is pretty common. But before I get into you guys' questions, I would just like to give you guys a reminder that if there is a question that you sent into the comments of the last video, but you don't hear it here, be sure to check the comments of the last video, because chances are my answer for your question is there. So starting off with the first question, coming from Cassidy Jay Williams, and you want to know, what is my least favorite James Bond film? Well, I can openly admit I haven't seen all of the James Bond films, but I've seen most of them. But I think the one that stand out to me the most, I don't think it's a horrible film, but it just is forgettable and probably my least favorite that I've seen, and that's Quantum of Solace, which I believe is Daniel Craig's second film. But did anyone really like that film all that much? I don't think so. Next question comes from Silver Leonhart 2099. You want to know, who do I think is a better strategic who do I think is a better strategist and tactician out of the two teams, Dante and Virgil, and Cloud and Sephiroth? Okay, I'm going to cut you off right there. Number one, there is absolutely no circumstances that you could convince me that Cloud, in any capacity, would ever work with Sephiroth. The man would slit his own wrist, cut his own head off, commit general suicide before he would ever even consider working alongside Sephiroth under any condition. He would rather die than do that. But if we're talking strategic and strategist, I think out of the two teams, I think that as an overall combatant, I think Virgil is the best out of those four. I think he knows how to work through a person's offense more, and I think out of a tactician, he knows how to control a battle in the moment. Dante's good himself, but he needs time in order to adjust to an opponent, and that was very much clear when it comes to someone like Virgil. With someone like Virgil, Dante has to fight him numerous times before he can figure Virgil out and adapt his tactics. Virgil can do that with anyone on the first go. Cloud, not even in the conversation. I think same reason. The only reason he does as well as he can against Sephiroth is because he gets familiar with him the more he sees him. But for a first time one-on-one fight between these two, there's absolutely no chance that Cloud would win. So yeah, I would say after the two teams, my vote would go to Virgil as being the best strategist and tactician. Next question comes from Phantom Sidious, and you want to know, what are my favorite moments / scenes in the Sam Raimi Spider-Man trilogy? I'll pick one that really stands out to me. I believe it was in Spider-Man 2, and it was a moment where Peter Parker had stopped being Spider-Man, and James Jameson had actually hung up his spider suit on the wall, and he was talking about how horrible it was that his son's fiance got kidnapped, and he was blaming himself because he thought he drove Spider-Man away. And then right at the moment where he says Spider-Man was a hero, Peter Parker takes his suit back, and then he looks up and is like, "That bastard!" He's like, "He stole my suit." He's just on a dime. That was just a perfect moment. I was just like, that was a classic moment. I don't think these new Spider-Man films will ever be able to replicate something as perfect as that. And that scene always stands out to me. Next question comes from VBlader1, and you want to know, have I at any point considered using Ryu from Ninja Gaiden for a first serious matchup, and if not, do I think that there is no opponent for him, or is he simply that he's a masterful combatant and all? It isn't that. It's just I don't know that character really at all. It's not a matter of whether I think there's not an opponent. I'm sure there's an opponent for everyone, but to use Ryu from Ninja Gaiden is to jump into a completely different realm, and in fact the character himself breaks a number of rules. I don't know anyone in his universe, and so it's not a matter of whether or not there's an opponent or he's a masterful combatant. It's just I don't know him, and I generally like to use characters that I at least have some inside information that I've had for some time, rather than going completely fresh. And I think that's the challenge. Next question comes from Santiago Scarpino. You want to know, what is the scariest movie I have seen and why? Well, just like video games, there's not many movies that I can think of that actually scared me. Horror just, for some reason, just doesn't click with me. But I think one movie that sticks out to me, I mean, I've seen it so many times it doesn't really scare me all that much anymore, but I know it did when I was younger. And that was Event Horizon. I think like a lot of the funny thing is I don't see anyone really talk about that film. The reason that stood out to me is it's kind of like the very first ghost shit movie, but it's in space. Well, it's not really in space. It's technically on another. It's like in the atmosphere of another planet. And I just think that the visual cues, the atmosphere, it was all kind of creepy. And there's some pretty disturbing things that happen in that film, and it's. Yeah, I mean, don't get me wrong, I mean, I've seen it so many times it doesn't scare me anymore, but I know for a fact that when I was a kid, when I saw that for the first time, and even several times after I saw that growing up, it freaked me the hell out, but I've made peace with that film. But yeah, that's the one that, like, still gets me. Like, if no one's ever seen it before, like, if I know someone, and if they ever want to watch it with me, that's, like, something I would be more than happy to do. Next question comes from Daniel Villegas, and he wants to know, do I think in the first, wait a second, let me rephrase this. This is one of those really, really difficult questions that, depending on how you say it, it means differently. So, let me say it slowly. Do you think the first in series needs something new, or are you going to go and end the series that you're trying something new? Okay, I think the meaning of your question is, do I just want the series to end so I can try something new? No, I very much would prefer the series to continue, but it's just the demand is steadily declining. Like this, I'll give you guys a heads up on this one. Despite the fact that, you know, the last one I did, Titus versus Zidane, was a fan favorite that was requested by a lot of people, that is the worst performing video that I have done in 4 years. Like, it still is seriously underperforming, and that is something I was really, really upset about, because trust me, I put a lot of really hard work into these videos, and so to have that kind of response, in which not many people even saw it in comparison, I mean, like, believe it or not, matches from several, like, season 1, I mean, believe it or not, even after all these years, my very first video, which has terrible audio quality with the analytics all over the damn place, and the match itself just not making much sense because it's so one-sided, that is still performing better now than the newest video I ever did. And so that really upset me. And so I would keep my ears open for a statement that I'm going to make at the end of the next video that I'm going to be uploading on the 30th, because I have a pretty big statement and a last gasp attempt to save this Versus series, and it's really up to the viewers to decide that. Next question comes from Brady Burke, and you want to know, who is my favorite anime villain and why? Anime villain, I'm going to have to go with Merrick Ishtar. Preferably Yami Merrick Ishtar from Yu-Gi-Oh! Season 2 and 3. He's my favorite villain simply because he was a lot more hands-on. I thought he was pretty serious as a sadist. You got to see him a number of times. He really knew how to work his Egyptian god card probably better than anyone. I mean, even after Atem got a hold of Raw, I never saw him use Raw as well as he did. He really was a serious challenge, and throughout the series of Yu-Gi-Oh!, at least in the first generation, I have not seen an opponent provide that much of a level challenge where it really felt like Atem had a legitimately serious challenger that was like just as much of an equal of a strategist and as a duelist as he was. And it was just only by the very end he managed to pull out a win. I think every other antagonist, there's kind of elements on the side that kind of help Atem win, but I think that was the most perfectly balanced villain. They did a lot of horrible things throughout the 2 seasons he was in. Really horrible things. And I just haven't seen anyone before or after really elevate themselves. I mean, some would say Darts because, you know, he was kind of wiping out like all the humans on the planet, but even that felt a little bit over the top, at least for me. So that's why I think Yami Merrick Ishtar is my favorite anime villain. Next question comes from Venom Rules All. You want to know, how important do I think the final battle between Cloud and Sephiroth and Evan Children was, And what did the battle mean to me? Oh, it was very, very important. I think it was, you know, Cloud being able to conquer his demons and finally able to get over his loss, because, you know, Cloud does not like losing friends, and, you know, the fact that Sephiroth was the cause of all that, you know, he kind of felt like it was a battle he had to win and overcome. So I think it was just, it allowed Cloud to grow as a character, and I'm sure by the end he was a much better person because of that. So yeah, I thought it was very, very important. And the last question of the episode comes from Virgil, the son of Sparta. He wants to know, what were my favorite moments when I played Resident Evil 4 for the first time? Favorite moments? Let's see, 3 that really stand out to me. The cabin standoff, first time, very, very challenging. Didn't know how to handle that situation. There was another situation, had never experienced this in a game before back then, but you know, the enemies that have those giant Wolverine claws that are blind and can only be fought with sight, from hearing. That was a very, very creative fight that I never saw. And I think the third one, this section always, even now, it creeps me the hell out, is when you enter like the bug nest. That is such a freaky level, because you don't know where these damn things are. I mean, you can hear them, but you don't know where they're going to come from. You don't know if they're going to come from the front of you. You don't know if they're going to come from behind you. And so, even as many times, even after all those years, how many times I've beaten Resident Evil 4, that is like the one section. Even when I go in with like an infinite Tommy gun and a rocket launcher, still creeps me the hell out. Those damn bugs are just terrifying to me, even now. So yeah, I would say those like the 3 scenes in Resident Evil 4 that really stand out to me, or really stood out to me when I first played the game all those years ago. And that will do it for this particular episode. If you guys have any more questions you'd like me to answer in next week's episode, be sure to type them in the comments down below. But make sure you get them into people for next Wednesday, roughly around noon. And also make sure that it's only 1 question per person. And also, as another reminder, if you do send in a question that I can answer in the comments, just, you know, keep your eyes open for your inboxes or, you know, your comment notifications, so you'll know that I've responded to your question. And like always, if you like this video, feel free to like and subscribe to, you know, keep track of me, my future episodes, people's questions every week, and other future videos. And like always, thank you guys for watching. You're awesome, and I will see you next time.